Hey guys, it's Sarah with ExtremeTerrain.com, and today we have a review and install of the RedRock 4x4 cold air intake in wrinkled black, fitting your 07 through 11 3.8 liter Jeep Wrangler JK. This kit features an aluminum pipe with a powder coat black finish, a heat shield with the same finish, and a conical reusable air filter. This intake provides better flow when compared to your factory airbox and has no tune required. So one thing to note with this intake, because of the design, it will not protect against water as nicely as some closed box designs or some snorkels would. So if you frequently go off-road and encounter water, you might want to consider one of those options. But for the average Jeep owner just looking for a nice cold air intake, this one gets the job done. Coming in at around $150, this is the most affordable option in cold air intakes for your JK. I'm giving this install a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. It can be done in approximately 2 hours and features a direct bolt-up installation. All right, with that said, let's jump right into our install. For this install, we used a 3/8 drive ratchet, a 1/4" drive ratchet, a 3mm Allen key, 12, 10, 8, and 7mm sockets, several extensions, a 10mm wrench, cutters, and a flathead screwdriver. All right, so the first step in our install is to remove the plug for the IAT sensor at the back of your intake. You can push back on this red tab, or you can use a flathead and gently push back with this. Once the red tab is released, press down and remove the connector. Using an 8mm socket or flathead, remove the clamp holding your intake to your throttle body. Pull the PCV hose off the back of your airbox. Now we can remove the 4 metal clips holding the top of our airbox on. There should be 2 at the back and 2 at the front. With the top of our airbox free, we can now lift it out and remove it. Remove your air filter and set it aside. Now we can remove the lower portion of our airbox by gently lifting up and wiggling. This should free the 3 pins on the bottom. At this point, we're going to remove and transfer over the IAT sensor from our old intake tube into our new one. Grab this and wiggle it free. If it's fighting you, you can lube this up a little bit just so that it will come out. Replace the sensor into our new tube into the rubber bushing here. Now we can assemble our airbox using the small hardware, washer, and nut. Line up the plates on your airbox. And get your hardware through. Make sure there's a washer on each of these bolts. Make sure you have a washer on these. Grab a 3mm Allen key and a 7mm socket and tighten these down. At this point, we can install the weather stripping on the inside here where your air filter will go, and also along the top. Line it up on the ridge here and just press it on. Press down on the weather stripping and make sure it's seated as you go. If your piece is too long, you can trim it down. Now we'll take the larger piece of weather stripping and run it along the top here, and you do have to run it down this corner a little bit here. Get it started at the far corner. And when you hit this bend here, you might want to just give it a notch in the backside here with a set of cutters so that it can clear this bend a little easier. Bend the end of this weather stripping down this corner. And seat it along the side. All right, now that we have our factory intake uninstalled from our Jeep, we can put it side by side with our RedRock intake and really check out some of the differences. Now, right off the bat, you may have noticed the aluminum pipe, which is powder-coated textured black, which matches your heat shield. This is going to be great for when your hood is closed. The heat shield is going to protect your air filter against the heat from the engine. And when your hood is open, it's going to look great, giving you that nice aftermarket appearance to your engine bay. This air filter is also washable and reusable, which is going to save you money down the road when compared to your factory paper filter. So this entire combination is going to breathe better than your factory intake, giving you a little bit better throttle response and that nice aftermarket sound. All right, so let's get this installed on our Jeep. We do have to remove one 8mm bolt that's holding on our fan shroud in order to install it to our heat shield here. Grab your 8mm socket and let's get this off. Now we can install our heat shield. Line it up with the 8mm bolt that just came off. Grab your 8mm socket and tighten this down. You may need a small extension to clear this. Grab your long hardware and get it through the holes in your airbox and also through the rubber grommets that were attaching your factory intake. Now we can install the larger washer and nut on the end of the two long bolts. You will have to go underneath your heat shield to do this. Grab a 10mm socket and wrench and tighten these down. Grab the two smaller clamps and slide them over the end of your pipe. Slide it over your throttle body. The smaller end of the coupler will be going to it. Get your clamps in place and then grab an 8mm socket and tighten them down. We now installed this spacer between the bottom bracket on our intake pipe and the heat shield. There should be a small hole at the heat shield underneath where your air filter will pass through, and that's where we're going to install this. You also want to grab two nuts, one for either side of the spacer. Grab the rubber spacer and line it up with the hole in your heat shield, as well as the bracket on your intake pipe here. Make sure you put a nut on either side with a washer. Grab a 12mm socket and tighten down the nut on the inside of your heat shield. Adjust your intake pipe so it slides over top of the stud. Grab your 12mm socket and tighten this down. Grab your larger clamp and slide it over the top of your filter, and slide your filter over the end of the pipe. Once your air filter is fully seated on your pipe, line up your clamp and tighten it down with an 8mm socket. Grab one of your clamps and slide it over your PCV line, and then slide that line over the port on your intake. Grab your 8mm socket and tighten it down. Grab your connector and reconnect it to your IAT sensor, and press the red tab down. All right, so that is going to do it for the review and install of our cold air intake. Remember, for all things Jeep, keep it at ExtremeTerrain.com.